So there are a lot of differences between the Philippines and the US. At least with the places I've been in the US, like people aren't always as like ready and willing to start conversations, or if they are, not necessarily about like their personal lives, you know, and all these intimate details. Whereas in the Philippines, I would meet people and they'd be like, yeah, my husband just died, you know, or like, I'm really struggling, you know, with this hard situation right now. But God is good and I'm still alive, you know, like my favorite thing is in the States, you're always asking, you know, how are you doing today? And people are like, oh, I'm good. Things are going fine or not bad. And the most common response I got in the Philippines was buhay pa, which means still alive. You know, I'm still alive. So I love that. But that's one difference. Another difference is with food. Obviously food is like super duper important to them. So like fast food is not really a thing. Like people take time to eat. Like they have McDonald's and they have other like fast food restaurants and chains and things, but people really like take their time to eat and talk. Eating is social in the States, but it's very, very social in the Philippines because anytime you're eating, everybody's invited. It's like a party, basically. With language, I feel like they use a lot of body language. So like with calling people over, or if they're really annoyed, they'll go like this. But that's like not very common. Like that rarely ever happened to me. I think it only happened like once actually for the whole year and a half I was there that somebody did that, and it's super rude, so don't do that if you go there. But they also like raise their eyebrows a lot. Like to say yes in Tagalog is oo or opo if you're being formal, and so if they just do this, they're just saying yes without saying anything. They also point with their lips. Like if you ask them where something is, they'll be like, you know, like to like point at it. And it's really funny. So I really enjoyed that difference because I feel like it was easier to learn the language because there just is a lot of like nonverbal communication. But their language is also very simple. Like in English, I feel like there's a lot of nuance, but then in Tagalog, it's more like everything's very straightforward and like clear cut. So it's easy to say exactly what you want to say, and there's not usually more than one way to say it, but they also don't like delivering super complex ideas generally because I think because their lifestyle is so simple. You know, like you get up, you go to work, you have like a siesta in the middle of the day where you sleep because it's so hot. It's very, very, very hot there. I've heard that Florida climates are similar, but I've never been to Florida and I've never experienced extreme heat like that. So they are very much more religious than Americans in general. Like talking about religion in America is usually okay if you're like the same religion or like similar religions maybe, but it can be a little bit of a dangerous topic. In the Philippines, it is not dangerous. You can ask people questions about like who Jesus is to them, and they're all willing to talk about religion and what they believe or like don't believe. So the food there is very different than like your typical American diet. I enjoyed it, but like it's all about what you like, right? So they love fish. Everybody loves fish there. Like fried fish, smoked fish, like older, more fermented fish is a big deal. Like they'll like hang it to dry in like the market and then they'll like refry it. And so it like smells very fishy. And I like never thought that I would enjoy that, but I really acquired a taste for it. So actually I like they call it toyo, and that's like the smelly fish. And you dip it in like soy sauce and like, well, you eat it with your hands usually, and then the smell stays on your hands for like days. But it tastes so good. And you dip it in this like, it's a mix of like these little tiny lime things called calamansi. So it's like the juice from those, like tiny little cute limes. And then like soy sauce. Soy sauce is like a big part of their diet. Same with oyster sauce, same with vinegar. They really like their like sour things, but they add a lot of sugar to everything. Ketchup, they add a lot. Their ketchup is very sweet. They have this stuff called banana ketchup. It's a different consistency than ketchup here in the States. But again, I really like it. It's different, but it's good. They also really like organ meats. So they like liver a lot there. They put that in a lot of things. I never really acquired a taste for liver myself, but I like all the things that they put it in. They love like fresh fruits, you know, like the mangoes there are incredible. They have papaya, that's incredible. Guyabano is another one. Jackfruit is a big one. They like have so much fresh fruit there. But I really like the big, strange, spiky fruits and the little strange spiky fruits, because they have a lot of those in tropical places apparently, and I just enjoyed all of them. Lanzones, rambutan, like they're all really good and easy to eat. The hardest things to eat are probably buko, which is just like the young coconuts. And those are everywhere. Everybody's always selling buko juice, which is just like the water inside, and they'll mix it with sugar and then sell it to you cold by the side of the road. And it's so good. Yeah, the fruit there is amazing. And they love like stewy kind of dishes. So like everything goes over rice. Like you have rice and then you have ulam. And ulam is anything that goes on the rice. But you start with rice. like people would just give me like a plate of rice and then you put like whatever you want on it. And then they'll always tell you while you're eating, there's some more rice. Don't worry, there's some more rice. Like you can get more rice. And if there's not rice with your meal, they'll be like, how could you possibly be full, you know? Because you didn't have rice. So it is like at the center of Filipino food. And then the stews, like there's something called adobo, which you can make with chicken or pork. Not usually fish, but you could. I've also made like tofu adobo, but the most common is chicken, and they'll add egg sometimes to it. I love the soup there called sinigang, and that's like a sour fish soup. Well, actually no. So you can make sinigang na isda, which is a sour fish soup, and then you can make sinigang na baboy, and that's like a pork soup. And then they have this like comfort food soup that I really like with chicken and ginger and like this vegetable called sayote, and that's really good. It's very refreshing. And again, you pour it over the rice. You ate the soup with the rice. Like they're not separate. Everything goes together. They love this like shrimp paste that's very salty called bagoong. And they'll put it on these like sour green mangoes called Indian mangoes, I think. I really like those as well. And then they have, I'm trying to think what else. Bananas are huge. I never really liked bananas actually until I went to the Philippines. So that's testament to how great their bananas are, but they have different types. Like they have these little ones that you boil, and then they have like longer ones that are sweeter, but they don't have anything as big really as what we have in the States. I'm not sure why that is, but I think they taste great. So I'm totally like spoiled on Filipino bananas. They also have this thing called blood soup, which is very interesting. I've only had it like twice, but I didn't dislike it. I just thought it was very different than anything I've had really in the States. And then they have these like fertilized duck eggs, which everybody talks about. It's like very common to be like, have you had any balut in the Philippines? Because it's again very different. I also had like barbecued intestines once. It was also fine, you know, like not the worst. No, it was fine. Just again, very different. I think when you go to a new place with different food, you really have to like have an open mind and an open stomach, because you will be exposing yourself to tastes that are so different than like your home, like your home base, your home culture. And I'm grateful because my parents, I feel like, have always made food that was from like different places in the world. So I didn't really have any exposure to Filipino food before I went there, but I was used to eating like kind of different things than like your standard, you know, meat and bread and mashed potatoes. So yeah, but I really enjoyed the food there and I miss it. I've tried to like recreate some of the things I've had there. They also have this stew with like peanut butter in it called caldereta that I think is really good. And a lot of things made with coconut milk and coconut cream, which were also just heavenly, you know, just like dreamy to eat, like eating clouds, like a lot of their desserts. They have this thing called mango float or like mango graham cake, and it's like sweetened condensed milk and graham crackers and mango just like layered and they just like pour like coconut cream and stuff all over it and it tastes amazing. They put it in like the fridge, make it really cold. It's fantastic. Oh, and then they have this thing in the summertime that's huge. It's called halo halo, which means mixed, and it's just like shaved ice but mixed with like everything you could imagine, like sweetened condensed milk, ube, which is this purple potato that's really sweet, but they'll like cook it in a giant vat with like milk and stuff, and it's to die for. But they put it in there, and then they put in like sweet potato, and they'll put in beans, and they'll put in like these weird little jello cube things called nata de coco, and they'll put in jackfruit, which is really sweet. And yeah, it's fantastic. Again, you just mix it all together, and everybody's halo halo is different. Like some people will put one thing in and other people will put another thing in. So you never know what you're gonna get. Everywhere you go, you will see little stands during the summertime. And if you're sick, they will not let you buy it. They'll be like, no sugar. If your throat is hurting, you can't have sugar. So, they know best. But yeah, I really enjoyed the food there. It's a crazy place, but I think it's a safe place because people there are so kind and loving that they like help you out. So while I was there, I noticed if you're out after dark in a place that's not well lit, people will tell you to go home. They'll be like, you shouldn't be out right now. You should be home in bed asleep. Because most people there, they go to bed like when it's dark. So they'll go to bed around like 8:30, 8 or 8:30. Most people do. And anybody that's up late is usually drinking or they're doing karaoke, which is also a huge thing. People do karaoke all night, anytime they're having a party, or just any other time. So basically it is safe, but you also need to like pay attention to what's going on around you because there is a lot of craziness, there's a lot of drug usage, and you will attract a lot of attention if you are white or if you look like you're not from their country. So, which basically is if you're white. Like I had, friends with me there that were from other, like from Polynesian islands, and everybody there thought that they were from the Philippines. Whereas with me, everybody was like, she's definitely like a foreigner. Although my accent got really good. So there were some people that were like, are you like half Filipina? And I was like, no. Do I look Filipina to you? And they'd be like, no. But yeah, just to be safe, just be aware of how much attention you can attract by looking different. People will also assume that you are more wealthy if you, again, look like a foreigner. And so you have to be aware of that. Like, you can ask locals, like, if you have any friends there, it's good to ask them, like, what prices should things be? Like, what price should transportation be on a tricycle, or what price should these things be at the market? Because sometimes there are no listed prices and they will just give you whatever price that they want because they think that you have more money to give them, and they struggle financially. So in general, so they think, oh, this person can help me because they have more than I do. But they just assume because it is a very, I don't know, like the conversion is so different, right? From the dollar to the peso. So it does make sense that it's that way. But I would just say to like be aware of what the conversion is, but also like what prices things should be. Because similar to Italy, actually, like bargaining is a thing. You know, somebody can tell you a price and you can be like, puedeng, and you can say something that's like a little less expensive. And then they'll decide if they want to give it to you for less or not. So there is a little bit of like haggling in markets especially, which I think are the best places to shop. But they can seem crazy. They're not dangerous though. I've heard that Manila is a little bit more of a big crazy city. I mostly lived in San Pablo, which was closer to suburbs, but also still city. And then I imagine if you're in some place like the Bukid, which is like out in the middle of the countryside, that's safe. But again, you probably wouldn't want to be around at night. You know, there are snakes and really big spiders, and just from like a wild nature perspective, it's not like, I don't know, like you should always wear bug repellent. I got bit by this mosquito and I got this crazy disease called dengue, which can be, you know, lethal. So definitely wear bug repellent, but don't let that stop you from going to the Philippines because it's a great place. They just have a lot of bugs. They also have a lot of butterflies and wonderful things and people that will help you out. So that's what I have to say about safety in the Philippines. I love the culture in the Philippines. I love how warm and friendly the people are. They always say they're very hospitable, but it's like a way of life for them. Like everywhere you go, people will be like they all do this to like call you over, and they'll be like, kain po tayo, which means like let's eat. And so anytime they see you, they want you to like join them for food. They're always having parties to like celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and, you know, a birth. And so, or like even with funerals are a huge deal. And family, I would say, is like at the center of their culture, family and God. And so I just thought it was really refreshing, you know, to go somewhere where like the connections with other people are so important, and like it's so easy to make new friends. Like I always felt like I could easily make a new friend wherever I went because they're very open to like talking to strangers. Like when you get on public transportation, like you can be like, where are you going? You know, or like, where are you coming from? And like people will just answer and like talk about their health problems and the weather and their kids and grandkids and like really anything, religion or, you know, not usually politics, but like the things that are like kind of at the center of their lives. So I thought that was really wonderful. I love the Tagalog language because it's very like, I don't know the word, but it's like every syllable, like every consonant is very strong and every vowel is very musical. So like when you're learning it, like I had a housemate and she was so sweet to me. She was always walking around the house singing. She's just a very sweet person. But she was like, I remember her being like, ah, e, o, u. You know, like she would like do all of the like things that you do with little kids there when you're learning how to talk and when you're learning how to read. And she would tell me what all the like body parts were. And I just felt like it was it's such a musical language, Tagalog is. They have like a lot of different dialects there though. Like I never lived with anyone that was, well, I lived with her, but besides her, during my whole time there, I didn't really live with anyone that was a native Tagalog speaker, because they speak all different kinds of languages there that all have kind of the same pronunciation, but like different words. So like in Tagalog, for example, you say o and e for like or and. But then in Bisaya, which is another one, I had another friend that speaks Bisaya, and in their language it's like oog and og for and or. So very different, but like also the pronunciation's the same. I think I had the hardest time with, they have this sound and like we have it on the end of words, like ing words, like when we say singing or running, but they have this sound before vowels. So they'll say nga, like they have this word that means need, and it's pangangailangan. So when I was like working on my accent, I would just be like nga nga nga, you know, nge nge ngi ngi ngo 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 ngo. Just like trying to practice to like get that sound very like fluid and easy to say. I noticed I have an easy time like mimicking people, and so a lot of people there thought I was fluent before I was fluent, but I would say it's very easy to learn to speak the language there because people get very excited when you're making an effort. And so I would be like, good morning, you know, which is magandang umaga po, and I would say that and people would be like, oh, you're fluent, you know, they'd be like, fluent ka. And the cool thing about Tagalog is they really like to do this thing called Taglish. So they'll put English words inside their very strange grammar structure, which is very different than English. Like we have subject, verb, object, or whatever. In Tagalog, you can have subject, verb, object. You can have verb, subject, object. You can have like verb, object, subject. So they'll just like mix things around, which I think is nice because the way they conjugate the verb like kind of changes the focus of the sentence. So if you want the focus of the sentence to be the object, you just change the type of verb ending and beginning that you use. And yeah, it makes more sense when you're like speaking, but it's funny because I thought that they would be speaking pure Tagalog, and then I'd hear people be like, kailangan nating mag-pray, which is like the English word for praying. And they would just use a lot of different English words that I was not expecting. And so sometimes I like wouldn't understand them because they would say the English word with a Tagalog accent. And so those were the hardest words for me to learn, which was funny. And they also have lots of Spanish in their language. Like they have numbers 1 through 10, they'll use Tagalog numbers generally, but then anything over 10, it's like it's too inconvenient to say the Tagalog word because Tagalog words are very long, so they'll just use the Spanish, which is sort of funny. But they have these like subtle differences, like instead of saying siete or siete, they'll say siete. Instead of saying 10, they'll say gis. It's very funny. But yeah, their language is very unique, but very musical, I think, which is funny because they love to sing, but they love to sing in English as well as Tagalog, and it almost feels like most people don't know how to sing on pitch, but it's like the tone is very nice. So I feel like their voices are made to sing. They just tend to fall flat, maybe because of the humidity, you know, like string instruments. I don't know. That's just a theory of mine, but I could be wrong. No, but I love listening to them talk. I think actually part of the reason, I talked about this earlier, but I think part of the reason that their language and their like ideas that they're communicating are so simple is because words are so long. So like their word for faith that's just an example I use because it's so long. It's like one syllable in English, and then in Tagalog it's pananampalataya. is literally like the whole word. But I really like the way that they put things together. So like they'll have a root word, like the word for light is liwanag, and then if they conjugate it a certain way, magpaliwanag means to explain. So it's kind of like the English like enlighten, but it like makes sense, you know, it makes more sense than explain to me, because you're like making things brighter for someone. I don't know. So I really enjoyed, like, while I was there, I really enjoyed just how simple like conveying ideas was because of the language. There is this little old lady that lived around the corner from us, and I'm not sure if she was like all there mentally. She was very old, and she would just walk down the street every morning, just like up and down the street nearby where we lived. And we would always like walk up into that neighborhood where she lived, and then we would go down this long set of stairs to the lake, and then we would run around the lake to like exercise. And we always saw her, and she would always say hi to us, and she was so cute and sweet. And one day she just like said Merry Christmas, and it was like around Christmas time, and she gave us money, and I was like, I'm gonna like keep this, you know, 20 peso bill forever, you know, because she's just so cute and sweet. And like people there don't have a lot, you know, it's a very underdeveloped country, so I'm sure she didn't have like a lot of money just lying around, but it was so precious to me. I was like, if you want to give this to me, I will accept it, you know, and just treasure it, because she was such a sweet, sweet little lady. So one time, my friend that I was living with, we were going to visit somebody, and I felt like we should leave later to go teach her. So we left like a half hour later than we planned, and it was raining, and on the way there was this girl who we saw, and she was the other girl's sister, and she said, oh, she's not home, Ella's not home, the girl that we were going to visit. And we like still decided to like go down and see maybe her mom, you know, or whoever was there. And her mom was outside doing her washing, because everybody washes their clothes by hand. We even washed our clothes by hand, and I miss it a lot. I thought it was really fun. But anyway, so she's just washing her clothes by hand in the rain, and they live right by this inlet that like went into the lake, because there's like a big lake right by where we were living in a city called San Pablo. And anyway, so we were just standing there like chatting with her mom, when suddenly my companion yelled snake like really loudly, and I was like, what, like a snake? And I looked, and there was this giant black snake that like went down over their little like shack thing that they were living in, and like went inside the house like this fast. And it was crazy because, you know, we obviously, like, her mom was like, what, a snake, you know? And she was like, we need to get like my son out of the house, because she had like a little 6-year-old son inside. And so he came out of the house, and then we got like another neighbor to come and like help kill the snake, because apparently like black snakes are really dangerous. And it was like this, you know, like this big around. It was a big, scary black snake, and it was very long too. So anyway, it was scary, but they killed the snake, and she was like, if you guys hadn't been there at that exact time, I don't know, because the snake had like gone and hidden under her like kitchen area. It was just like rock, and like dirt, but no one would have seen the snake. So I felt like that was a cool experience to have. Like, I felt like God guided us. So anyway, that's my most exciting story. I went to this thing called a boodle fight once, which is a big deal in the Philippines. They actually say that food tastes better when you eat with your hands. And they have this tradition where sometimes when they're getting everybody together to have like a party, they'll put down all these like leaves from like a coconut tree, like the big fronds. I'm not sure what they're called. I know they're called in Tagalog, but In English, I'm not sure. Anyway, they like lay them all down on the table and then they have all these different foods. Like they'll have roasted eggplant and like hard-boiled egg and like all of these different like kind of finger foods, and like pork is a big deal. And you just like go for it. Like everybody just stands around the table and then just like eats with their hands, and you can throw food, but it's more just like you're fighting for the food. Like you gotta eat fast and be very involved so that you like get everything that you want. But I really enjoyed that. I just love the Philippines. I love everything about it and the people and the culture, and I miss it all the time. So my message to the Filipinos is, well, I'll just give a little message. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Sana malusog po kayo at masasaya po kayo sa inyong mga buhay. Nagpapasalamat po ako sa kabaitan na ipinakita po ninyo sa akin nung nakatira ako sa Pilipinas, sa bansa ninyo, at nagpapasalamat din po ako sa inyong pagmamahal kasi talagang mahirap na iwanan ang inyong bansa at nakakatakot din, at nagpapasalamat po ako sa inyong halimbawa ng pagmamahal kasi hindi palagi na nami-meet niyo po yung mga mabait na tao, yung mga tao na ay sobrang generous at sobrang parang makabahagi at sana ay lagi po na alam niyo po na naala kita sa aking mga panalangin, sa aking mga isip sa araw-araw, at nami-miss ko po kayo. Gusto kong makabalik sa inyong lugar para makita kayo ulit. At yun po yung mensahe ko. Salamat.